The supply chain crash is much bigger than expected. Day after day, we listen to more news announcing the collapse of our supply chain. From lockdowns, distributing the stream of products over the globe to skyrocketing cargo rates, and a determined deficiency of shipping holders. From extreme clog at our key ports to the need of sufficient dock workers, stockroom staff, and truck drivers to create all of the merchandise ready for your nearby stores. Recently, Americans have been turning to social media to complain about progressively barer racks as the most recent surge of diseases takes off the already tight labor advertised more tightly. The truth is that our supply chain is the idealized representation of our economy. Since the supply chain by the economy, every single step within the generation, preparing and dissemination of an item requires assets, staff, and coordinations. And when the supply chain begins to break down, so does the economy. That's what the financial specialist, monetary strategist, and commentator James Rickards has point by point in the recent examination distributed within the Daily Reckoning. The term supply chain comprehends a perplexing framework of fabricating, handling, transportation, bundling, promoting, publicizing, client relations, merchant and supplier relations, and of course capital, the most component that gives bolster to the connection between the supply and demand of each single physical, computerized, intellectual, or imaginative artifact in the whole world.
Hello and welcome to Economic Crisis.
The supply chain is everywhere, as explains Rickards. To illustrate the complexity and extensiveness of supply chains, the analyst cites an experiment suggested by MIT scholar Yossi Sheffi in his book, The Resilient Enterprise, in which you consider yourself as one-person supply chain to understand how rooted these dynamics are in our daily lives. Sheffi highlights supply chain procedures are hidden in everything we buy and consume. For example, when you wake up in the morning to the sound of an alarm clock, it must have been purchased at a high price from a retail store which is made in China, and you get out of bed to make a cup of coffee that is brewed and prepped up in Brazil. Or you make breakfast which has been from a local farm, and your mixed fruit juice which came to you from California, and that goes on and on. We all are surrounded by goods from all over the world. In short, whatever you get at the store has gone through farming, refining, design, manufacturing, packaging, and transportation. And so, we see lots of information on its packages. The supply chain could be complex, energetic framework of a colossal scale. It is of a complexity that's even more than a climate. This implies that correct cause and impact cannot be computed since the handling control required exceeds the combined handling control of each computer within the world. Most individuals have some idea of how supply chains work, but few get how broad, complex, and defenseless they are. In case you go to the store to purchase a pound of bread, you know that the bread did not magically show up on the rack. The collapse of worldwide supply chains can be credited to two diverse variables: efficiency and energy. The cutting-edge form of supply chain administration started within the 1980s, as globalization and the growth in innovation combined to create supply chains more complex, conjointly offer tools to oversee this complexity. That's to say, for example, in case you have got a company and need to lower costs for your clients by lessening your trucking suppliers to the two that offer the least rates, you're reading your vulnerability to disruptions. On the off chance that one of these providers suffers a strike or is hit by a normal calamity, you likely won't get your conveniences in time. In other words, the covered-up taken toll on productivity is defenseless, which leads us to the moment issue: energy. Complex and energetic frameworks such as the supply chain require a gigantic sum of energy to operate. The huge issue is that the worldwide energy input rises in connection to the scale of the framework. In basic terms, this implies that in case you double the scale of a framework, you're likely to require a part more energy to run, which incorporates power, capital, and labor. Concurring to the investigator gauges, you'll require 5 times more energy in such a situation. So when benefits from extending the scale of the framework are high and energy costs are low, these unbalanced proportions of scaling capacities may still be productive. But when benefits begin to decrease and energy costs surge, the results of higher energy inputs cost only a greatly extended supply chain network and interpreted into major disturbances to the operation of the framework as an entirety. Other components right now weighing on the supply chain are the health emergency and rising geopolitical pressures. Worldwide superpowers such as Australia and China are attempting to kill the virus. Indeed, as the rest of the world faces a modern episode that appears very inconceivable. It's nearly the same as seeking after a policy in which no one catches a cold. They need a utopia, but the cost to pay is exceptionally genuine. There's as it were one issue: the framework is greatly delicate. When things break down, everything gets more regrettable at the same time. One missed conveyance can result in a complete gathering line closing down. One postponed vessel can result in purge racks. One control blackout can result in a transportation breakdown. In a nutshell, that's what has happened to the worldwide supply chain. There's a lack of excess. The framework isn't vigorous to stunts. The stunts have happened in any case. Widespread exchange wars, China-US decoupling, bank collateral deficiencies, and more. And the framework has broken down. The disappointments have cascaded. Delays in accepting product inputs in China have brought about in fabricating delays for sends out. Vitality deficiencies in China have brought about in advance disturbance of steel generation, mining, transportation, and other essential industries. Port delays in Los Angeles have resulted in components and wrapped up product postponed within the US. Semiconductor deficiencies have stopped production of gadgets, apparatuses, automobiles, and other biodurables that depend on mechanized applications. You've seen how complex the framework is. In America, our leaders' approaches have ended up making indeed more regrettable blockage and driven to agonizing fines for companies that weren't able to move their containers due to the need of laborers. All of these expanded costs are being passed on to buyers who have been managing with the most honed expansion spike in nearly 4 decades. Given today's viewpoint, supply chain must be rebuilt. But as James G. Rickards is an American attorney, financial specialist, venture financier, speaker, media commentator, and creator on things of the fund and valuable metals, and the writer of Money Wars, The Making of Another Worldwide Emergency, and 6 other books, cautioned, reconfiguring the supply chain will take 5 to 10 years to accomplish. In the meantime, you should expect empty shelves, higher costs, and slower growth in companies most affected by the breakdown. The foot line is in case supply chains are breaking down. The economy is breaking down. In case the economy breaks down, the breakdown of social arrange isn't a distant place. And the costs of social clutter are far higher than any conceivable reserve funds from evidently effective supply chains. With the ongoing slightly recovered pandemic, the supply chain needs to be looked upon not just by the businessmen, but by governments of different countries as well. As I already said, the microwave, alarm clocks, books, mobiles, laptops, or the perfume from your favorite brand hasn't been put on your shelves by some mystical energies. So now that we've reached the end of the video, wait. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe so you can join the squad and be a part of the channel. Till we meet again, keep investing, keep loving, and don't forget to keep your family safe. Thanks for watching the video. Adios.